Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about warming up. We've had a lot of requests about warming up, about questions about is it static, do you jog, do you whatever you do, what is it you do? And basically we don't have a particular sequence of techniques. We have more of a philosophy of warming up. Most of it is very dynamic, and it is sequential from the joint rotations, foam roll, and then into some technique, and then off we go into some kicking. So we're going to take you through maybe something that's fairly typical for us. These techniques can be exchanged with other techniques that do similar things. I'm just going to give you kind of an average warm up that we might use in a particular class or at one of our training sessions. First and foremost, we never start without foam rolling. So Christy, would you go down on the foam roll and start. So to give you a little background here, they're going to roll just about everything, from their legs, their back, their arms, everything, the side, the pecs. They're going to be able to use the corner of the foam roll. The idea here is to change some tissue density to make it so that those muscles are more apt to lengthen when we do move and when we do stretch them. There's some controversy, there shouldn't be, over fascia manipulation and so forth. It is a fact that every muscle, every fiber in your body is encapsulated by this fascia. It has more of a plastic than elastic kind of quality. So it needs to be manipulated, and this rolling actually does that. It heats up the muscle a little bit, changes the tissue density, and really does make the stretching or the warm-up more feasible. It is also extremely good after a workout or before your corrective stretch in the evening, where it becomes a deep tissue massage. It's extremely valuable. I don't have any athletes that don't carry, use, and kind of live with their foam roll. It's one of the things that they've got to start using. So some of the techniques, you can watch Christy do this. She'll roll her hamstrings. She'll show me the IT band. Get on the IT band. This one's a real crowd pleaser. You'll find a lot of trigger points in that IT band, and this will really help you kind of keep your leg health by making sure that we work all that material out of the muscle. You roll the front. You can roll a flexor. Use the corner of the roll. We'll roll the hip flexor. So essentially, suffice it to say, we roll just about everything we can. Okay. After we get through all the rolling, and we're just going to suppose that she's rolled for 8, 10, as much as 15 minutes. Then we will do some joint rotation. So why don't we have Jim? Why don't you come in and we'll start some joint rotations here. The key here is to move most of the major joints in the body: shoulders, hips, knees, and so forth. And he'll just start really casually. This is about as simple as it gets. Just to move them. I suggest your younger, your cadet types, they can use about 10 revolutions in each direction. And when you start becoming a little bit older, like maybe closer to my age, although nobody's that old, you would then probably get up to as much as 20 revolutions per joint. Christy, having had a hip replacement, she would go as much as 30 or 40 revolutions on that hip line in order to create the environment that the joint is starting to secrete synovial fluid. It's kind of like the body's 3-in-1 oil, and make that joint really move freely. It also connects your brain to everything that's forcing this to happen. So this, in a kind of a very outrageous way, could be considered neurological. So we've done kind of all the joint rotations. We can do them on the floor. We can do them a lot of places. But suffice it to say, hula hoop, hip movements, all kinds of things like that would be working. So next thing we want to do is we're going to do some leg ups. So Jim, why don't you lay on the floor, and we're going to coordinate the lower and upper body. So as he raises his leg, he raises his arm, and they come together. They'll go to one side and the other. He doesn't touch the floor. He comes within a couple of inches, moves them over, And this is not only warming up still, it's almost like a joint rotation, but he's actually coordinating his upper and lower body at the same time, kind of conditioning his brain. Now he'll do both sides, but this is just the beginning. So once he gets through both sides, he'll do 6, 8, 10 reps a side. Then he'll go opposite arm, opposite leg. And we'll do the same thing. Left to right, right to left, up and down, same thing. He'll go back and forth. Now, if you wanted, you could, like Jim, he could alternate them like that. You could make the right side, the left side. You don't have to do all at one time. Same thing, 6, 8, 10 revolutions would be enough. Now, hip cross would possibly come next, and he would bring his knees into about 90 degrees of hip flexion, and he would take his hands out to the side, palms up, and rotate those scapula. Never want to give a chance, pass up a chance to do that, and then rotate his hips back and forth. Again, not laying them on the floor. Some of you will be much more mobile here. Some of you won't be. But this is going to force him to rotate in the mid-spine. Now, his shoulders are on the floor, and we don't want his shoulder coming up. Where the shoulders start to come up, that's when the rotation stops. What we want to do is just rotate back and forth, making sure that we get a nice, clean movement. Okay, and same thing. 8, 10 movements. Then we'll get into some hip rotations on the floor. So we'll go into a quadruped. And we're going to go inside and outside. So he'll use his right leg and he'll bring it as an outside rotation with an extension. Inside rotation with an extension. So he's starting to kind of, again, condition the body for those kicking motions and those movements, picking his knee up, activating his flexor. This is a really, really good exercise. You need to consider using your hips as much as you can. I guess I should not forget to say that Poomsae is a hip-dominant sport, so moving your hips is a critical thing. Next thing, I think we're going to try to do some T-spine activation. So this is the thoracic spine. So Christy, come on in. We're going to use partners on this. There's several activators that we use, but this one I like because it's very dynamic. Jim is going to mobilize his T-spine. So he's going to step over with his inside leg, put his hands palm down in front. He's going to rotate toward Christy. She will grab his wrist and his elbow, pull one arm as she pushes the other, and assist in that thoracic rotation. And we'll do several of these. You will get a lot of movement here because she's actually assisting that rotation. This is when he's punching or blocking forward, getting that nice angular look when he's moving up and down the floor in his form. Okay? Now they'll do both sides. Yeah, so, yeah, you go right here. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. And rotate, grab the wrist, pull. Yeah, that's it, good. Yeah. And this isn't a wishbone, so you're not going to break them, but you need to pull them substantially to get a lot of turn in that upper spine, in the T-spine, thoracic spine. Okay, so now we're going to do some breathing squats. What we want to do is get his hips turning, get him to squat. So we're going to give him a shoulder width with his feet. He's going to toe out no more than about 20 degrees, maximum. The center of his kneecap should be over his second toe, and he's going to use a hip hinge. So he's going to sit back with his hips as he sits down, like that, and then back up. You notice how slow he's moving? We're going to use maybe a 3-1-3 tempo. So maybe 3 seconds down, a second at the bottom, and 3 seconds up. Don't stop when the legs are parallel. I want you to put your butts on the floor. Maintain this lumbar curve as much as you can, right? And use the hinge. We want to get deep enough that we're going to activate the glutes and the adductors. This does not hurt your knees, by the way. And a little bit fast. We go 3 and 3. Okay, so that'd be a breathing squat. After the breathing squat, maybe we do some, that would be posterior chain. We do some anterior chain stuff. Like, for example, Chrissy, come on out and do some vertical lunges for us. So she's going to lunge forward, and she's going to drive her hands over her head so she gets a full extension on the psoas. Okay, good. And take one more. Okay, she's going to stop there, and now what we're going to do is we're going to come backwards now. And we're going to lunge backwards. So there you go. Down you go. Okay, come on. Stabilize. There you go. Good. And then step back. And step back into another lunge. and go vertical. Very good. So on the breathing squats and the lunges, we would probably, I don't know, do a set of maybe 10 or 12 squats at a 3-1-3 tempo or a 4-1-4 tempo very slowly. And then we maybe do some lunges up the floor. Maybe you'll do 6 to 8 up the floor and 6 to 8 back down the floor, and you'll be finished with that. After we get through with that, most of the movement is done. You notice that we've not done any static stretching. All this movement is actually stretching everything we want to stretch. Now, where we have to go here just before we kick would be what we call it our eccentric loads. And there are two areas that you have problems when you're in a Poomsae training program. People will tend to get sore elbows, and they'll have hamstring pulls because of the kicking. You're not kicking into a target, you're kicking in the air and loading it with a tremendous amount of energy. So first we want to do is let's protect our elbows a little bit. And so to warm up the proper muscle, and in the case of the arm, it's the long head of the bicep. Because what that does is it actually slows the arm down as it extends. So if we warm it up and make it strong, the brain will tend to turn it on when it's necessary to protect the elbow. So turn a little sideways. And she's just going to reach out very, very lightly, open-handed, and pull back very abruptly, just like that. That little abrupt movement, she'll feel it right here on the long head of the bicep. She'll feel it. You feel it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll do that maybe empty-handed and do both sides. Yeah. And we'll do no more than, say, half a dozen, because you're loading that muscle pretty hard. Hang on a second. I will get a ball, for example. Another extension of that. We'll get a ball. Maybe this weighs 1 pound, and she's going to throw it up in front. She's going to catch it and pull it back. So she's catching the ball and loading it as she comes back. Right. So it's a very simple exercise, right? And what we're going to do is continually. Thank you very much. We're going to continually load that bicep like that. And that also would take, if she did 6 or 8, that'd be a lot. We'd be finished. And she can actually punch as hard as she wants to, and that elbow will not get sore because that muscle will slow it down. Okay, so I'll put that over there. What we would do is now, we also want to do some eccentric loads for the legs. There are 3 sections. We have a front, a round, and a back. So Jim will help us. And the front section, the key here is everybody's done these stretch kicks. Those things actually shorten range of motion because there's a stretch reflex that we do not want to access. So he's going to go up really slowly, and then he's going to pull down really fast. So it's really slow. So we don't create the big stretch reflex. He goes up where there's no tension and then loads on the way down. Okay, that would be front to back. It would be more of a front kick. You'd be protecting that hamstring, and then it would be a roundhouse. You come out. And he'd pull it back really quickly. Again, loads out slowly and pulls it back very quickly. So we're loading the eccentric muscles rather than the concentric, which would be way more, that'd be the muscles you're actually pushing the leg out and kicking. Now, the back one would be to the rear, steps out and brings it to the floor. Very quickly, he brings it to the floor. Yep, just like that. Now, number of these, you would do more of these because your legs need a lot more work. I would do somewhere between 15 to 20 of each particular section. And then you would pretty much be ready to kick. You'd be able to kick and work your Poomsae probably as aggressively as necessary in order to train at whatever level you want, and your body would be fairly protected. So again, roll, joint rotations, dynamic movement, and then eccentric load. And that would be the basic philosophy of our warm-up. And to be honest with you, I can honestly say our athletes do not pull hamstrings and they do not hurt their elbows. I think a lot of it's due to their diligence in warming up, and the fact that Naeem and I and Steve walk around with a big club and don't let them kick until they're absolutely warm. Thank you. I hope this helps.